Welcome to Concerned Citizens Presents. Concerned Citizens of Laguna Woods is an organization dedicated to peace, economic and social justice, good government, and a clean environment. Every month, we invite an expert to enlighten us on a topic related to our mission. Because Village TV videotapes these presentations, we can share that expertise with a larger audience. We hope you enjoy today's broadcast.
Welcome to our Peace Day program. Please find a seat. I'd like to point out that today, in addition to it being Peace Day, this year, 2023, is also the 75th anniversary of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. And when we first began Peace Day here, and we talked with the late Margaret Perlman about what she felt had to be central to anything we might do in honor of Peace Day, she said the preamble to the Declaration of Human Rights. And that preamble reads, whereas recognition of the inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. So it's also the 75th anniversary of that wonderful document. And now, could we welcome, please, Sue Modell, who is the chair of Concerned Citizens of Laguna Woods Village.
So I want to welcome you to what Latifa has described as the 5th annual, and we expect to be ongoing annual observance of International Peace Day, which is falling actually on this day. We always have meetings in Concerned Citizens on the 3rd Thursday of every month, and this is the first time that the observance has superimposed itself on the actual day. Usually we're some distance away. I would just only want to mention that peace was really the foundation, the initial motive for the development of Concerned Citizens, which was organized in 1981 by a bunch of Laguna Woods residents, many of whom had protested the Vietnam War, some of whom had marched as Another Mother for Peace, you may remember that, and other related groups. So we're really pleased that Latifa has brought this enormous peace initiative that she brought with us when she arrived in 2019. And we know that you're going to enjoy today's program.
We're going to begin with Barbara Goldstein doing her own poem, Peace, Peace, Peace. Barbara.
Before I begin, I just want to mention we miss Charlie Redden, who's the head of our spoken word club. He wasn't able to be here. But if I ever think of a person and peace that go together, Charlie is one of the most accepting people in the world who expects nothing from anybody else. And we all love him. My poem is from the heart. Peace, peace. Pray wars cease. No, that's not a joke, folks. Just listen. When there's love in your heart, that's a start. Can you imagine if everyone were calm and serene and no one in the world knew the meaning of mean? If everyone were at peace and cared for oneself, and the meaning of happiness didn't depend upon wealth, that means money. Enough killing and hate. I hope, dear reader, it's not too late. Peace within, a place to begin.
a poem by Carol, Glenn, and David Deering will tell you more about this wonderful poem. So.
This poem is called Think of Others, and it was written by Mahmoud Darwish, 1941 to 2008. Mahmoud was an award-winning Palestinian author and poet. His literature, particularly his poetry, created a sense of Palestinian identity and was used to resist the occupation of his homeland. He asks us to think of others. As you prepare your breakfast, think of others.
Do not forget the pigeons' food.
As you conduct your wars, think of others.
Do not forget those who seek peace.
As you pay your water bill, think of others.
Those who are nursed by clouds.
As you return home, to your home, think of others.
Do not forget the people of the camps.
As you sleep, count the stars. Think of others.
Those who have nowhere to sleep.
As you liberate yourself in metaphor, think of others.
Those who have lost the right to speak.
As you think of others far away, think of yourself.
If only I were a candle in the dark.
And now please welcome Lee McMorris.
When They Sleep by Rolf Jacobson. All people are children when they sleep. There's no war in them then. They open their hands and breathe, and in that quiet rhythm heaven has given them, they pucker their lips like small children and open their hands halfway. Soldiers and statesmen, servants and masters. The stars stand guard, and a haze veils the sky. A few hours when no one will do anybody harm. If only we could speak to one another then, when our hearts are half-open flowers. Words like golden bees would drift in. God, teach me the language of sleep.
Everybody would like to learn the language of sleep. And now please welcome Robbie Nestor, who is a wonderful poet in her own right. Thank you.
I'm reading Peace by Sarah Teasdale, and I'm sorry I don't have her dates, but 19th century perhaps. Peace. Peace flows into me as the tide to the pool by the shore. It is mine forevermore. It ebbs not back like the sea. I am the pool of blue that worships the vivid sky. My hopes were heaven high. They are all fulfilled in you. I am the pool of gold when sunset burns and dies. You are my deepening skies. Give me your stars to hold. Thank you.
I have the pleasure of reading one of my favorite poets, Pablo Neruda, in Prayers for the Earth. For once on the face of the earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment without rush, without engines. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness, Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors. Those would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade, doing nothing. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death.
And now, again, we're going to have Lee McMorris. Thank you, Lee.
Goodness, Kindness, Friendliness by Johnny Gruel, from his life-changing book called Raggedy Ann Alphabet. Goodness, kindness, and friendliness are just like 3 lovely flowers growing upon one stem. Each one seems to belong to the others. For when a person is good, the happiness in his heart makes him wish to do things to please others. And when we do things to please others, everyone loves us and wishes to do nice things for us. So when we say to ourselves, I shall be nice and good, we plant a tiny invisible seed of sunshine in our hearts, which grows and grows into a beautiful garden of gentleness, kindness, and sympathy. And the garden of sunniness blossoms with the most wonderful flowers, the dearest and sweetest in life, the flowers of friendship.
David? Deering? We have another poem that you're reading, yes?
This is a poem by Simon Ike called War Has No Winners. When will man ever learn what wisdom need to discern? No killing is above the law. No winners in any war. We won't put up with their threats. We'll kill the enemy with our jets. Top brass, control the press. Tell the truth, more or less. Collateral damage is what they call it. Don't like to say what caused it. Innocent people blown to pieces. Don't mention this in press releases. Seems that we never learn from history. Finding a peaceful solution, still a mystery. We live the lie of war and glory. Thank you for the musical accompaniment. War has no winners is the truthful story.
And again, please welcome Robbie Nestor. Please know that this poem is really a very important award-winning poem, and we are very honored that you can read it before us today. It won the Wick Prize for Poetry. This is very special. Thank you.
It actually won honorable mention in 2019, awarded by the poet Naomi Shihab Nye, which I found to be a personal victory. Diplomacy. Oh, enemy, oh, friend, you are closer than my ear. I dream night after night of your face, larger in the shadows than my own, as we circle one another, two planets caught in a pas de deux. For years we have studied one another, imagining how to strike. Yet in truth, we have not come closer than a thought, flaring our fins like fighting fish, beautiful in our fury. What if we break these glass walls? Will we at last come face to face with ourselves, hands hanging weaponless at our sides, armed only with our voices, our human voices? Thank you.
I'm going to read this poem, and hopefully this will do for me.
Yeah.
Do you know how to pull this up a bit? Well, it'll have to do. I'll squash down maybe. This is a poem by Maya Angelou. It's a wonderful poem called Amazing Peace. In our joy, we think we hear a whisper. At first it's very soft, then only half heard. We listen carefully as it gathers strength. We hear a sweetness. The word is peace. It is loud now, louder than the explosion of bombs. We tremble at the sound. We are thrilled by its presence. It's what we have hungered for. Not just the absence of war, but true peace, a harmony of spirit and comfort of courtesies, security for our beloveds and their beloveds. We, angels and mortals, believers and non-believers, look heavenward and speak the word aloud. Peace. We look at each other and we look into ourselves and we say without shyness or apology or hesitation, peace, my brother, peace, my sister, peace, my soul. Thank you.
Up and down. This is a piece by Walt Whitman. This is what you shall do. Love the earth and sun and the animals, despise richness, give alms to everyone that asks, stand up for the stupid and crazy, devote your income and labor to others, hate tyrants, argue not concerning God, have patience and indulgence toward people, take off your hat to nothing known or unknown or to any man or number of men. Go freely with powerful, uneducated persons and with the young and with the mothers of families. Read these leaves in the open air every season of every year of your life. Re-examine all you've been told at school or church or in any book. Dismiss whatever insults your own soul, and your very flesh shall be a great poem, and have the richest fluency not only in its words, but in the silent lines of its lips and face, and between the lashes of your eyes, and in every motion and joint of your body.
And closing this part of our program, before our guest poets come forward, we will have Sunita Saxena. The bio got mixed up in her program. Sunita is a retired high school teacher, and she taught physics, math, and technology in India and in the US, and for 30 years. She was raised in a progressive, multi-religious, multi-racial family in India, and she believes in the ideology that the color of blood is the same in all people, red.
Thank you, Latifa. Recipe for Peace. This beautiful poem by Deborah Baker expresses the sentiment of caring and sharing for each other through the simple act of baking bread. The simple act of cooking and eating together as a global family. Bare your feet, roll up your sleeves, oil the immigrant's bowl. Open the doors and windows of your house, invite in the neighbors, invite in strangers off the street. Roll out the door, add the spices for a good life, cardamom and soul, cumin and tears. Stir in sesame and sorrow, a dash of salt, pink as new hope. Rub marjoram and thyme, lemongrass and holy basil on your fingers, and pat the dough. Bless the table, bless the bread, bless your hands and feet, bless the neighbors and strangers off the street. Bake the bread for a century or more on a moderate heat. Under the olive trees in your backyard, or on the sun-filled stones in Syria, in the white rocks of Beirut, or behind the walls of Jerusalem, in the mountains of Afghanistan, and in the skyscrapers of New York. Feast with all the migrants' tongues until your mouth understands the taste of many different homes, and your belly is full, so you fall asleep, cradled in the skirts of the world, curled in the lap of peace.
That concludes this part, and now we have our very special guests, and please allow our poets to leave the stage while we invite Ruja Mohassesi, the Iranian poet who's going to read from her book, this When Your Sky Runs Into Mine, and also Emmanuel Williams, who's going to finish the program with his own book on peace and some riddles. And you'll like his riddles, so get your riddle mind going. Thank you.
So I want to start by thanking Latifa for organizing this inspiring event, and it's amazing to hear that it has been going on since the 80s. And I'm going to dedicate my reading today to the women of Iran. It has been a year since the death of Mahsa Amini, and the women are still fighting for their rights, and we don't hear about it as much in the media, but the fight is ongoing. And the poems are, I'm going to read a few poems, and they are about, some of them are about war, and I think it is our job to remember the horrors of war, so that it does not make us forgetful, because that is what happens. History seems to repeat itself when we get forgetful. And this first poem, also I think the poems you will see are all dedicated to women, to mothers, to grandmothers, to great-grandmothers, and I think it's really to them that we need to look for peace, to mothers and women. This first poem is dedicated to the mother of Nikasha Karami. Nikasha Karami was a 16-year-old girl who lost her life during the protests last year, 4 days after the death of Mahsa Amini. She was out on the streets protesting, and they chased her and killed her, and they hid her body from the family for 9 days. And eventually they delivered the body to the family, and the family prepared the body for burial. And overnight the body was kept in a morgue. And that night, the Basijis, or the military arm of the Iranian military force, they went and stole the body, and they buried Nika in a far-flung village, remote village, to avoid publicity and gathering and protests. And so I wrote this poem for Nika's mother. Her name is Nasreen. I'm gonna need my glasses for this. Sweet is the truth of a nation on your lips. The river stones are listening. Yusef Komonyaka, for Nasreen Shakarami, Nika's mother. Tav. Bitter is the afternoon and minutes away from midnight when they are the street corner where her mobile phone is silenced for good, the post-mortem, 9 days and nights in a morgue where perspiring walls preserve forensic details, the truth on a toe tag, the once smooth and rolling slope of her skull depressed to a hollow, broken cheekbones, loosely housing scant teeth. They are the repeated and again sarkub, sar as in a daughter's head unveiled, luring light. Kub is the pounding momentum of nightsticks. The rest of her, Nasreen, you say, was salem, as in wholesome. Her fingers, thighs, the lengths of her arms, her soles, the torso stitched shut. They are sin, committed before the first light. On the 10th day, Najes, the ambush on the dead, the unchaste pairs of hands on the gurney after your hands, Nasreen, had dressed her in 3 pristine sheets of kafan after rites and ablutions, after the warm stream had run its course down the right, then left length of her and left her scented with camphor and prayers. They, a grave hack through the shallow roots of thorn and thistle, the haste, the hearse and daughter, lost in a convoy of country dust before the first azan. Taz, bitter now the silence on your street, Nasreen. Shireen, the truth of a nation on your lips. In a house in mourning, rows of gladiolas are lined up against the wall now, stiff swords in tall buckets, their tips catching inklings of light. Thank you. It doesn't get much lighter after this, but I'm going to read a few poems from my book that came out in February. This next poem, I grew up in Iran during the Iran-Iraq War, and at one point, one of the, a child, I think he was 12 or 13, during the first few years of the war, he went to the front lines, unbeknownst actually to his family, and he threw himself under an Iraqi tank. And because of the explosion, the Iraqis thought that the land was mined, and so they retreated, and the Iranians won the battle that day. It was called the Battle of Khorramshahr, and of course they made of the poor child a martyr, and his pictures were everywhere on our school bags and things. So this is, the Iran-Iraq War was very much kind of a World War I kind of war, where that was fought with verve and chemical gas and that kind of, it wasn't pressing the button kind of war. And so this is dedicated to, and it's in memory of this child. His name was Muhammad Hussein Fahmide. And it's a ghazal, which is a Persian love song, or called ghazal, maybe you may be familiar with it. Khorramshahr, 1980, in memory of Muhammad Hussein Fahmide. And it's in the voice of the mother of the child. We were soft-fed the sweet dirt of our homeland, each day some new blessings of war. Husband, I tip that olive beret over your hazel eyes, dazzled by the trappings of war. May this embroidered tulip keep you, I prayed, stitching God to your chest, 4 double-edged crescent swords soldered to a dagger, the flower weapons of war. Once you left us, our son flushed as a redbud, his temples wrapped in a green headband, stood shoulder to shoulder with his friend and recited for me his lessons of war. Remember how they chased that ball past twilight? Now here they sit after school, cross-legged on the Tabrizi rug, bowing with the teardrop medallions under the naked bulb. They rock to and fro, their voices broken with the sweet cadence of surahs. Our home, husband, is a nest for amorous nestlings of war. They begged me to string their plastic keys to paradise. With this we'll hold fast to the rope of Hussein, they swore. The Imam says we, the children, are the angel caresses of war. How I snapped that day. You are 13, I cried, too young to be drafted. Oh, they cooed that old love song and knife in my ear. Beheaded, trampled, grandson, lamb of the prophet, we long to be his rose essence of war. In the doorway, I held the holy book over their heads. They passed under 3 times, rose to their toes, kissed the golden spine. They promised to hold ajar the gates of heaven for me. Oh, husband, look for them at the front lines. Dear God, watch over my adolescence of war. On a clear Thursday, Muhammad Fahmideh wrapped his body in a shroud of grenades and cried, Oh God, pull the pins. Roll me down these green hills of Khorramshahr. Husband, won't you come home now? In the courtyard, a lone mourning dove now sings of war. This next one is dedicated to my grandmother. That's my puppy there. She's my #1 fan. I feel like the women in my family were the ones that I owe everything to, for just emotionally and psychologically surviving the trauma of war and immigration and all of that as at a young age. And my grandmother was devout, and no one in my family was particularly devout. And I used to like to pray with her. And Muslims, they fast during the month of Ramadan, and children are not allowed to fast. And I always, every year, I beg to fast with her. She kept saying, "You're too young. You're too young. You're not allowed to fast." And eventually, I think I was around 10 or so, and she said, "Okay, you can fast for half a day." So, I told her, don't tell mom and dad, because if they found out, they would be upset. And so I fasted for half a day with her, which was amazing. You get up before dawn, and you have what is called sahari, which is the meal before dawn. And then during the day, I went out and played with the neighbors and cousins and stuff, and I forgot that I was fasting. I got thirsty, and I drank some water. And then I came, I was like, I forgot. And she said, if you forget, God does not mind, it doesn't count. This is called Ramazan in Tajrish. Tajrish was a neighborhood in the north of Tehran by the Alborz Mountains. For Madar. You nudged me with a whisper to rise an hour before Azan, from under the thick of dove feathers, warm with your love for God and me, the musty grandchild who had rushed the weekdays to arrive at you, and you were already more in love and old, like walnut trees. Little did I understand of the hours past the shuffle of shadows, why they felt solicitous, safe only at your home, like uncles who dropped their manliness at your door, removed their shoes and stooped through the narrow frame to greet you. Whether I hurried out of your bed to meet God at my paisley prayer mat, the cotton janamas you hand by hand, or to putter after you out and into sunlit rooms was moot. Little did I understand of the prayer in your gate. For the faint, dehydrated child, the afternoon hours ran from the setting sun, while your white chador shifted faithfully about you, sprinkled with flowers, deferential with the remaining minutes. Though too young to fast, even then I knew when I pestered you with a 10-year-old's dogged demands to rouse me for Sahari, the day-old lavash we tore like a promise between us, buttered at near dawn, and to keep our secret from Mama and Baba. I knew in your low-cloud voice that would nudge my sleeping cheek only once. Did you think I would not hear you? In the reluctance of it lodged the caress of those childhood days. Thank you. And this last one is from my great-grandmother. She was another amazing matriarch in our family. She lived to be 100, and she was a healer. She never used medication. She used herbs and things, and to the end, when she was in pain, she would self-medicate with these tiny doses of opium. And she had beautiful white braids, and she would sit on a high bed, and when we would visit her, we would sit at her feet. And I have a bangle that's passed on to me from her. My only bangle, for Khanum June, my great-grandmother, after Lucille Clifton. Today, I celebrate my only bangle, my one-hand applause, the gold leaf on my family tree, my hand-hammered heritage, my blood. Today, it refused to slide off, a rounded portal barring my hand in spite of the sweet-talking soap, the slip of cold cream, in spite of not matching my low-cut cocktail dress, my silver choker. It cleaved to knuckle and bone, held me by the wrist, each unalloyed karat ablaze. Here, it whispered, rub some coal under your eyes before you step out. Then let me hear you pronounce your name. Thank you. Be still.
Now, please welcome Emmanuel Williams.
Okay, I'm going to do something, as they used to say in my country, and now for something completely different. I am going to tell 2 or 3 riddles, just as a break. How many people, by the way, in this hall have had the experience of my telling them a riddle? Well, that's gratifying. Okay. And if I told you this riddle and you know the answer, shh. Okay, what was I going to... Oh, yes. 2 letters say my name. 2 letters and a question. What I embrace or climb up, I destroy. What am I? By the way, I'm partially deaf, so when you think you know the answer, shout. 2 letters say my name. 2 letters and a question. What I embrace, I destroy. Oh, God, Manny, the feeling of power. You might see the answer outside. Yes?
Envy.
No, but you're close. It almost rhymes with that. But that's got 4 letters in, hasn't it? Envy. This is a 3-letter word. Something, what letter in the alphabet is a question?
Why?
Good. 3 letters. 3rd is Y. Yes?
Ivy.
Yes. Ivy. You got it. Well done. Next one. 1 in me, 2 in you, 1 in him, 1 missing. 1 in me, 2 in you, 1 in him, 1 missing. Yes, somebody got it. Vowels, did you say? No. Vowels, that's it. Vowels. 1 in me, 2 in you, 1 in him, 1 missing. Vowels. What's the one that's missing? The lady there nodding her head. A. One more. Oh, I don't know whether they can get that one. This is not about me. I should preface this. Naked I walk, cold and naked across the fields I walk, so that you may walk warm. Somebody said it. You, sir? Sheep. Sheep, that's it. Naked I walk, cold and naked across the fields I walk, so that you may walk warm. That's the riddle section. Thank you for participating. And the next, here we go. My first poem is about, well, I'm just going to start straight into the story. When I was in Arcata, Humboldt, getting my master's, years and years and years and years ago, I knew a guy called Steve Miller. He had been a vet. He was a vet, actually. He was in the Vietnam War. He was a tunnel rat. He was a short, tough guy. And he used to sit with me in a bar called the Jambalaya, and he used to tell me stories about about his experiences. We just had this kinship, and he just told me, and his stories were absolutely awful. A tunnel rat went into tunnels prepared by the Vietnamese peasants and things, so that they could hide from bombs and American infantry and so on. And so he was sent in there to get them. And what he told me just stayed in my English heart. And then one day I wrote a poem called Frontline Man, and went to his house, and he was sitting in the kitchen with a couple of other guys, and they were smoking Humboldt bud, and they were stoned. And I said to Steve, I wrote a poem about you, dude. And he said, let's hear it. And so I read this poem, and by the time I finished it, he was under the table. And he looked up at me and said, how, if you'll pardon the expression, how the fuck did you know? And I said, because you told me. Frontline Man. So and it made me realize that one huge source of suffering in wartime is experienced by the military. PTSD, all of that. I can't find it, so I'll just try to do it by heart. He's seen too much. He's overexposed, past all limits years ago, detonated several hundred minor gods, found the happy medium by accident and lost it in a bar downtown. Which truths remain intact? Which myths still hold their meaning? Every night another bomb destroys the kitchen. Grenades destroy the tunnels in his dreams. Pray for him, my friends. There's no place left for him to run to. They jump from foliage and swamp, grin behind their triggers, dodge the mines behind his eyes, and close in for another final kill. God bless you, Steve. Ritual. And this is a fairly long run, so put my glasses on if I can. Yes, there they are. Ritual. I'm going to do 2 more poems. You've hung in really well. This has been an incredible event. Ritual. Okay, let's get started. Let's do it. The last bullet has been fired, and the last shell, and the last rocket, and the last canister of poison gas, and the last heat-seeking missile, and the last anti-missile missile, and the last torpedo. The last bomb has boomed into oblivion, and the last cold corpse of warfare has been buried in the earth. which enfolds it with compassion. The last gun, the last submarine, and the last tank, the last naval vessel, and the last warplane, and the last wardroom, the last military truck, the last minefield, have all been rendered forever non-operational. And the last barracks, training camp, operational HQ, ammunition dump, command bunker, nuclear test site, spy satellite, dismantled, disengaged, deactivated, and rendered forever non-operational. And the last soldier has been paid off and enrolled in a retraining program. And the last sailor, and the last airman, and the last marine, the last officer, the last spy, the last private military contractor, and the last employee, and the last executive of the last military industrial complex, scheduled for prompt closure, and the last war minister, and the last arms salesman have all been debriefed and enrolled in retraining programs. And the last war film, war novel, war poem have all been turned into compost or landfill, along with the last consignment of unused body bags, military survival track and rations, new and used uniforms, flak jackets, tin helmets, gas masks, camouflage backpacks. And the last letter home from the last front line has been read, brooded over, and ceremoniously burned. And the last salute has been made to the last war parade, and the last video war game has been electronically erased, and the last plastic gun has been recycled, and the last toy soldier, the very last toy soldier, buried with full military honours. And the last post has been played, and the last 21-gun salute has been fired, and the echoes and the smoke have faded away, and the smell of the smoke and the echoes of the echoes have faded away into silence, into the clean, sweet, peaceful air. Did we miss anything? Leave anything out? Bows and arrows, daggers, knives, stones, wooden clubs? Do we burn all the branches, grind every stone to dust? Lengths of rope, strands of wire, needles, hammers, chainsaws, on and on it goes. Guard dogs, whips, razor blades, lasers, hands, feet, teeth. Teeth? Well, we can bite each other to death, can't we? Do we extract everybody's teeth? Sever all hands and feet? We'd all die. Slow down a minute. Let's think this through. We always hurt each other, kill each other, always have and probably always will. It's here inside us, drives what we pour so much money into, what we invent, what we manufacture, what we are trained to operate, what we take into our hands and use. It's all inside us. That's where it all starts. The world we live and die in shows us who we are, shows us what impulses and energies we choose to follow. I don't know. If we could teach our children, if all the nations could sign a peace pact, and if all the women in the world, if we could learn to love one another, if we could all agree not to, if we all prayed together for peace. maybe I can find peace in myself. Last poem by me, and I guess the last on the program. So continuing. Looking back. Back then, 300 years or so ago, few of us were guided in our lives by grace. So there was always war and widespread poverty and hunger. We were destroying our earthly home. Many young ones could see no future, so they ended their lives. We do not know how many of our ancestors found grace or who they were. It was always there, of course, in everyone, alive and ready, waiting to bring guidance and the quiet bliss we now live with. Perhaps they were moved by an intensity and level of despair we cannot imagine, would not even wish to. Those who sought and found the grace of God, even as churches, mosques, and temples lost their places in our communities, they saved us. There was, of course, much cleansing to be undergone. Grace needs a pure home if it is to thrive. Through them, we learned to keep our inners clean. We learned to love one another, to live in peace, and to cherish our earthly home. God bless them.